Thanks so much for staying with us here on Atlanta News First Plus. I'm Joy Limnacker here with attorney Jamara Edward Shipp. Thank you so much for being with us.
Thank you for having
Especially
me.
because you have a broken foot. You have a
Right.
fractured foot. They can't see that, but I
Right.
appreciate you being a trooper.
No problem.
Oh my goodness. What a 24 hours we have had here in the city of Atlanta.
Yes.
I mean, I think that our viewers are aware. Let me just make sure that everybody's aware. Okay, so here's the first thing I want to do is share this brand new mugshot. And this is the man who is accused of hijacking a bus. And apologize, I've got the wrong super here, the wrong graphic here. But this man, 39-year-old Joseph Grier of Stone Mountain, he is a convicted felon, 19 prior arrests, and he is accused of hijacking this bus. Let me show you some video from the scene there. I am having some video issues. There we go. So here's some footage of what happened yesterday, the bus chase. And that is him, the suspect, being taken away in handcuffs by authorities there. And, you know, now he's facing a slew of charges, including murder, including hijacking. And what we found out was that he was also at the scene of the food court shooting. So this was what happened just hours before, where four individuals were hurt after a shooting at Peachtree Center Mall food court. And this is a suspect in that case, 34-year-old Jeremy Malone of Morrow. Apparently, according to investigators, got into a fight with a man at the food court, opened fire, and ended up shooting this 47-year-old man and two elderly women, 69 and 70 years old. Okay, so now I want to show you this video. So this is when we were gathering video interviews right after that food court shooting. We interviewed this person, and then, according to police, this is a person who would go on and hijack a bus and kill someone. You can see, look at the same shirt, the same chain, the same facial hair. That is 39-year-old Joseph Grier of Stone Mountain. And on top of that, Jamara, when our crews were face-to-face interviewing him, which by the way is chilling in retrospect, he expressed to them, and we have it on tape, I'm not going to play it because of the circumstances. He expressed to them that he was essentially having a mental health crisis. After what he witnessed with the shooting, he had some underlying mental health issues. He was now having a mental health crisis. So what is your take on all this now that we're gathering this new information from a legal standpoint?
My overarching take is that Fulton County has a court system problem, a judicial system problem. What we are seeing is that a person with 19 previous arrests is now, being held for essentially having a mental breakdown. Now, that's not to say what he allegedly did was justified or even right, and he should be held accountable for that if he is found guilty. However, we can't keep incarcerating people and expecting them to have some type of rehabilitation, and when they get out without this rehabilitation, without this access to resources for mental health, but a complete access to guns in this country, we can't expect tragedy not to happen. And that comes from, overcharging cases, having caseloads for these prosecutors where they are not able to go ahead and indict cases and people sit and languish in jail, and then after so many days, they're given bonds, they're statutorily entitled to bonds in which they have to get out. I mean, there's so much wrong with this complete system, and it's starting to play itself out.
And we heard from Mayor Andre Dickens today talk about a number of issues, one of them being the criminal justice system, because we're talking about in both circumstances convicted felons. In the mall shooting, 34-year-old Jeremy Malone, he had been arrested nearly a dozen times, and in the bus hijacking, that suspect, 19 prior arrests. So we're talking about convicted felons in both cases. When Mayor Dickens talked about, essentially criminal justice reform, what does that look like? What do you think he meant?
That's a great question. I think that too many times we have politicians that try to simplify these things and say the buzzwords like criminal justice reform, but when it's put in practice, how does it actually look when you're out there in the field every day having to deal with it? And I don't think any of these politicians really have the know or the wherewithal to actually speak on these things. It's easy to say that we need more criminal justice reform. We need to ensure that convicted felons don't get access to guns. But it should also be easy to say we don't need to arrest everyone and therefore, put a burden on the system where those who actually need help or those who actually have mental issues don't receive the help, the resources that they need that would keep things like this from happening.
And it's a very complicated issue. It is, and it's people say we need criminal justice reform, and that's absolutely true. But it kind of reminds me, and not to mock anyone, when you watch those beauty pageants and the contestants say, "Oh, I want world peace." Yeah, we all want world peace. How do you
Right.
achieve that?
Right.
It's really not that simple. So when we talk about criminal justice reform, it sounds to me like you're saying mental health treatment is a big part of it, that locking people up is, yes, absolutely maybe part of the solution, but it's not the only thing.
That is correct. I've been in Atlanta on and off since 2010. It's now 2024. 2006. So it's easy to see how there's many people who are out on the streets, many people who are in Fulton County's jail who have mental health issues, and they are not receiving the treatment. They are not receiving the resources that they need to actually make them competent enough to kind of deal with those issues when they get out in the real world.
And
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Oh, I'm sorry. No, and to be fair, I do want to say that Mayor Dickens has, has actually talked about the need for better mental health support as something that, that they're looking at and working on. And he talked about the Atlanta Public Safety Training Facility as a space where, first responders, not just police, but fire officials and so forth, could work on, various tactics, whether it is de-escalation, whether it is response to individuals experiencing mental health breakdowns. So just to be fair to him, I do want to, add that. But please, I want to hear more of your thoughts, because you deal with criminal defendants as a big part of your practice. You deal with people who are accused in violent crimes. Among your various clients, I know you handle very different, a wide variety of cases. But in your experience, do you find that mental health issues are pretty common with criminal defendants?
Yes, and the reason I say this is because, there's always this question of there's this social contract that most people abide by. They don't do certain things. They don't, hijack buses. They don't shoot people in a food court. These are things that most people who have mental issues do. And by just sending these people to languish in Fulton County's jail, which had to be under DOJ oversight for it to get any changes, to just continue to send them to Georgia's prisons instead of sending them to mental hospitals, which, hey, have been closed, it just sends this message that we are just going to be a punitive society instead of worrying about rehabilitation for these people. And again, it comes to head when we have situations like this.
Well, and so here's the thing is that, just, and I'm not advocating for any particular side, but just observing the dialogue about this issue over the years, some people say, oh, by treating these people as mentally ill, you're letting them off easy, and they should really be punished. And I think what happened yesterday, many people would argue, highlights it's not necessarily about that individual, it's about keeping everyone else safe. It's about making sure that someone with an untreated mental health issue, an untreated mental illness, doesn't go out there and hijack a bus and kill somebody and, put all these drivers in harm's way. That the mental health treatment is about that, is about keeping everyone else safe.
I would agree. I would also argue that, not that we're arguing, but I would also bring up that intersectionality also plays a part in this as well. I mean, it depends on what the defendant looks like a lot of times on whether or not we say that this is a person who has a bunch of arrests, or if we say, oh, this is just a lone wolf, he was, acting on his own. All of that comes into play. So even with this idea that these two individuals have multiple arrests, do their arrests paint a picture of, hey, this person has multiple mental breakdowns, the police are called and then they're arrested? Or is it one of those situations where this person has been a violent offender for a number of years, and again, because there is no rehabilitation in our system, this person, once they get out and they are triggered, they have a mental breakdown and these types of things happen. We need to look at all of that, and I know it's one of those things that is easily said, but not necessarily easily done.
Yeah, that is for sure, absolutely. Any final thoughts on that, and maybe gun control?
Gun control is a big issue in America. I think that there is access to way too many firearms in America, but again, I understand that we have to temper that with our Second Amendment rights. So it's, again, complicated, just like everything else in the law.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's something that Mayor Dickens talked about. And he did talk about, a new focus on making sure that weapons are secured so that they don't fall into the wrong hands. And, particularly in cars, he talked about car break-ins and that being kind of a source of where people can access unsecured weapons, people who have no right to those weapons. So, it's a lot to unpack here. At the same time, I want to let our viewers know, let me just apologize. I'm just adding this video because I want to let our viewers know about, I'm having trouble finding the video for it, but I want to let everyone know that a jury is right now deliberating in the case, the murder trial, for really what surrounding the death of Susanna Morales. If our viewers may recall, Susanna Morales was a teenager who went missing, and later on, a former Doraville police officer was charged with killing her. And we've heard testimony over the last few days from numerous witnesses. Most recently, we heard some very tearful testimony this week from a lead investigator, Detective Carter, who
So anyway, I drove around a little bit, see if I could find it.
basically
I didn't see it.
the crews finding Miss Morales' remains, and how there were no clothes on or near her body, indicating that she was naked, that it was essentially a skeleton left, and they had to use dental records to identify her body because it was so badly decomposed. She went into great detail about just seeing that black nail polish and knowing from social media posts that that was her, and she cried, which as a detective in the homicide unit is remarkable. But the jury's deliberating now. The attorneys, of course, for Miles Bryant, the former Doraville police officer charged in this case, have argued there just isn't sufficient evidence to tie him to this crime. What do you think? What do you think of what you've seen so far out of this case?
I think that there is always going to be a burden to prove that a defendant is guilty beyond a reasonable doubt. Looking at the evidence, I think that there are arguments on both sides. There is an argument to be made that the defendant can't be tied to this. However, as we see and as we're quite evident, we're at the jury deliberation stage, so obviously the state has put forth a pretty good case to tie him to this murder. And for the family's sake, whatever may happen, I hope that justice is served for.
So anyway, I drove around a little bit, see if I could find it. I didn't see it. It was dark anyway, but.
Okay. Anyway, I'll list it in the truck just to say it's on our report.
Yeah. I don't really care about the detective stuff like that. I just want to get on UCIC at least some perfectly called on the side of the road with it.
I got you.
And prosecutors have told the jurors that Bryant's phone painted location where Morales' body was found in the hours
My
after
lieutenant
she
in the
went
guard
missing.
is Soto. Lieutenant Soto, she works with Joe.
And we say that
And everything's
Bryant's
just standing on
department
the
issued
file?
gun
Yeah,
was
standard. I got a
found
Taylor,
near her decomposed
I
body.
think 7. The little small light on
They've
it.
also
light up?
said
That's it though,
that
no
he
red dot,
reported
nothing like
it
that. I don't
stolen
really care.
hours after she was
I have 1,000. Patrol anyway. I drove around a little bit, see if I could find it. I didn't see it. It was dark anyway, but.
Okay. Either way, I'll list it in the truck just to say it's on our report.
Yeah. I don't really care about, the detective stuff like that. I just want to get on GCIC at least. So I'm perfectly caught on the side of the road with it,
No, I got you.
Y'all getting slammed?
Honestly, no, not really.
West side moving, boy.
Yeah.
My lieutenant in the
That's a little more than you signed up for today, so I apologize for that. Yeah. Any final thoughts as we wait for, this jury to deliberate and reach their verdict?
Again, I hope that justice is served for Ms. Morales and her family, and I hope that they get the result that they're looking for.
Absolutely, which is definitely a conviction.
Correct.
So, well, thank you so much, Attorney Jamara Edwards Shipp, for joining us. So before I let you go, if our viewers, I'm sure they're very impressed by your work. They see you here regularly. What kind of cases are you interested in taking? If someone has, if they need legal help, how do they reach out to you? And again, what kind of cases do you take?
Hey, they can reach out to me on Facebook, Jamara Shipp. They can reach out to me on my website, Shipp, SHIPP, law, LAW.com. And also reach out to me on Instagram with the same tag. And I take civil litigation, a little bit of criminal litigation, and that's pretty much it.
That's all? That's a lot.
Yeah, right.
That's pretty much almost
jack
everything.
of all trades.
That's great. Well, thank you so much. We so appreciate your expertise and your analysis. And just for our viewers, just a reminder, if you haven't done so yet, please download our free mobile news app, and you can get updates on all these top stories sent right to your phone. Thanks for being with us.
All right.